Hello, I'm Pastor Caitlin. When I was young, I got to be a junior deaconess at my church. I clearly remember one Friday afternoon where I went over to one of our deaconesses' houses, and she showed me the process that she used for making communion bread. It was such a worshipful experience that it stuck with me all these years, even to today. And I am so excited that I can share that process with you. Let's face it, this has been a very unusual year, and normally we wouldn't be making our own communion bread. And by all means, you don't have to, but I'd encourage you to watch this video to see what the experience is like, and to understand the significance that comes along with this particular emblem. Enjoy.
As the ingredients go in the bag, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience making communion bread. I consider it pretty much a sacred privilege, and so I always start preparing myself. I pray, I ask God to bless my efforts, that the bread will be tasty, nourishing for the congregation, that they'll be thinking about what it represents, and that I'll be worthy in the process of making this, that I won't take the task lightly, that it is a serious thing that I do. And I start by putting the 1/3 cup of water into the Ziploc baggie. And the symbolism for me is really important. I think Jesus told us that He's the water of life. And without that water, all of us would shrivel up and die. And without His spiritual input in our lives, without knowing that He lives for us, there would be nothing worth living for. He is the water of life. And then the oil, in the Bible, we have many instances where oil is represented. In the tabernacle, it's the oil that kept the lamps lit, that made the atmosphere in the temple there. We think of the 10 virgins, 5 who had enough oil and 5 who did not have enough oil. And I think of the oil as Holy Spirit, as Christ's blessing us and helping us to shine for the world. And without that Holy Spirit, we are really nothing much. When my bread is made and after you've had communion and tasted the bread, there's usually a little bit of residue left on your fingers. It's a little of the oily residue. That is 1/2 cup of oil in there, and some people think that's a lot, but it's really not. The residue is really kind of cool because it's a lingering of the Holy Spirit, I think, afterwards. And when you shake hands with others as you leave church, you get to share that with them. Measure out 2 teaspoons of my kosher salt and put it right there in the bag with the liquids. Jesus says that we are to be the salt of the earth. We add flavor to the Christian life. If we are not dull and tasteless, if we are well seasoned, if we smile, if we're happy, our life can be a witness to others in the joy of living the Christian life. So put some flavor in your life, have some flavor in your bread. When we mix this up in the baggie, you want to have an emulsion of all of these, the water, the salt, and the oil. And by shaking it together, you get a pretty good emulsion. Turns out to be kind of a white, milky looking mixture. Okay, see how nice that is with the bag? You don't have a dirty dish. All right, and then we add the 2 cups of whole wheat flour. The whole wheat flour, pastry flour, it's a common flour. It's not refined. It to me represents the common man, and Jesus was common, like we are, in the sense that He was not distinguishable from common man in any other form. The pastry flour has been ground even more finely than regular flour, and again, the symbolism might be that Jesus suffered through more trials in His life. He was tempted more severely by the devil than many of us, than all of us. And you can see that the bag makes a nice place to mix this up. And we're just going to keep kneading it right here in the bag. Make sure you get out the corners. Clean out the corners and get all that flour. Mix it in well. You want to knead it enough that some gluten forms so that it doesn't just crumble to pieces when people try to pick it up. And also making sure that every bit of the flour is incorporated in. You can see I just keep working it. And inside the bag it's just so nice because it's not sticking to the counter. I don't have flour everywhere. Okay, and when it forms together in the bag into a nice little ball and feels pretty moist, like a good, like Play-Doh for you, then you know it's about right. And take all the air out, shape it into a little bit of a log. Seal it shut, and I set it on the counter for anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. You can even set it in your refrigerator and let it be a little bit longer. Have my oven turned on to 425 degrees. This needs to bake a little bit hotter. So unroll it, I give it a good smash with my hands to make sure that it feels like it's going to stick together nicely and not be too dry. If it's too dry, then I need to add some more water at this point. If it's too wet, if it feels too gooey, then we may even add a little more flour. But this one feels just about right. I'm going to let a little air into this and grab my rolling pin and just start rolling it out. It's really quite simple. This is something that if you have younger children at home, they can help you with. I've had junior deaconesses over to my house, those early teen girls, and talked to them about the symbolism of communion bread and had them help me make batches. And I just think everybody who has a chance to see the process and to just take a minute to think about the ingredients and what they perhaps represent. I know there's probably nothing really biblical about it, but it just helps bring meaning to it. God gave us all kinds of meaning in the sanctuary, and Jesus told parables, and anything that will help us feel and understand a little bit more about what we're experiencing, what we're doing. As you can see, I've rolled that right up to the edge. The nice thing about this is that I can feel to see if it's about the same thickness all the way through, and it feels a little thin down here to me, so I'm going to just roll some of it back that direction. Just take your clean knife and insert it right up to the edge. And these Ziploc bags right here sometimes don't want to cut, so that's when I get my scissors out and just go ahead and snip right through. So you can see, and at this point I may, push together any parts that don't seem quite right. Okay, our parchment covered cookie sheet. And I take this, I open it up. Leave the parchment right on top of it. Trying to get the air bubbles out. You don't want to push so hard that you're making the bread a different shape, because having it in this nice square is really, really handy. With the plastic still under it, you can lift it right up and lay it right down on top of the cookie sheet. Simple as that. Throw the bag away. It's done. Served its purpose. My ruler is approximately 1 inch wide, and so I just use it as a guide. The Bible tells us that Jesus was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. He bore our sorrows, and by His stripes we are healed. So as I'm scoring the bread, well, first of all, as I was rolling it out, we think of it as Jesus bearing our sorrows. The weight of the world on His shoulders, the weight of the sins of the world were on Him. Oops, sometimes they pop out a little bit, that's okay. And as I'm cutting it, these are like when he was whipped. By his stripes, we are healed. And then I use a 4-pronged fork, just 1 prong for each of his hands, a nail for his feet, and then the sword that pierced him. And I give each one of these a prick all the way through. Try to do them diagonally all the way through. And when you have that done, they go in the oven. You want to watch it. Everybody's oven is just a little bit different as far as temperature and heat. They generally bake for about 8 minutes, and I've had them in as much as 12. Again, depends on the moisture content. Bring them out. When they come out of the oven, the parchment will just slide right off very nicely onto the cooling rack. And then you just let them cool. We just hope that it's a blessing for your church and that your congregation will enjoy. Thank you.